go up. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Hal Bradley, and I'm a former international smuggler for the Sinaloa Cartel. And for the last 22 years, I've been a senior pastor in the Pacific Northwest area. Nice to meet you all. And thank you for having me on your show this morning, Ken.
And this is Pete A. Turner.
This is Grant Gillham, and you're watching the Breaking Down Show.
Hey, great morning to have a great group of people with some expertise. Many of you watching know myself and Dr. Hal and Pete, of course, from our previous episodes, but we're joined by a special guest this morning, Grant. Grant, tell us, where are you at today?
I am in beautiful, sunny Puerta Vallerta, Mexico.
Wow.
Is that sunny background being broken up by some pillars of smoke coming up, or what are you seeing this morning?
Not today. It's all clear today, actually. It was really crazy yesterday. The most of the images you saw were of burning vehicles. Not a lot of structural damage, although there were a few convenience stores in this area that were torched, and I believe a gas station or two. A lot more of it was to send a message, not to do real damage and not to hurt people. At least that's my initial observation based on what I saw yesterday.
Good. Well, let's get a little background from Hal on what we actually know about this group and this particular drug leader. So, Hal, go ahead and tell us a little bit about the new generation or next generation Jalisco Cartel. What do you know?
Well, my time goes back to the early 1970s. After discharge from the United States Army in March of 74, I went down to the village that I lived in as a child back in the late 60s. And we went over to Guadalajara, and I used to pick up marijuana from Rafael Cara Quintero. And that's when I met El Chapo for the first time. He, too, in the late 60s was in the marijuana industry before he became the leader of the Sinaloa drug cartel. So my time, everybody, goes back before the actual cartels were built. And then, of course, as you both know, I spent 15 years not only as an international smuggler for the Sinaloa drug cartel, but the largest distributor of cocaine in the Pacific Northwest history for that same cartel. What we're seeing right now, the last time I saw violence escalate because of the taking down of a leader was the day that they transported El Chapo into the United States. At that time, I was in a covert operation in the state of Sonora when literally all hell broke loose. The Sinaloa cartel exploded into several mini factions, and I was in the town of Ciudad Obregón in Sonora State, down there meeting with pilot who was allegedly flying heroin into the United States. It was a 4-day operation, and by the third day, we realized we had to get me the hell out of there. There was people being wasted, not even 2 houses away from where they had me hidden. So they got me in the trunk of a car, drove me through 2 cartel checkpoints to get me to the airport, flew me over to Tijuana, where I walked back in the United States. I met my team, debriefed that night, and the following morning, I hung up my guns and said, after 17 years undercover, I can't do this any longer. I was 65 when I retired from it. But the point I'm trying to make is this. I've been around and right actively involved in a moment's notice when the cartels go into this type of violent action. And this isn't just being a response for El Mencho. You got to realize when you take the head of an organization like that out, like they did when they took my lifelong associate El Chapo down, that there are other people that become in play immediately. And it isn't necessarily about taking over the topical post of the cartel. It's regional at this point, because when you lose a leader of that magnitude, gentlemen, and you know this, brother, you work in law enforcement down on their border. You saw changes as they progress based on leadership change. And that's what we're going to see right now. And brother, I'm really glad that you're staying in shelter while you're in Puerta Vallarta, that you're not actively out there in those type of environments. It may seem like a lull in the storm, but at any instant, if you're identified as an American, you're a potential kidnap target and other things.
Let's shift to Pete for a second and talk about the actual takedown here. Pete, they're saying that the United States contributed tangentially to this. What are your sources saying? What are you hearing? What kind of support does the United States or the U.S. military lend to these types of operations?
I mean, guys like us, if we're in a tactical setting, and by us counterintelligence people, we'll say in the Army side or even the Navy, you can have an Army guy supporting a tier 1 asset. So it can be like a joint thing. So don't think of this as being it's only DEA. It can be a combination of things. So let's say that a dude like me, who's an Army counterintelligence guy, tactical oriented, I'm down there in Puerta Vallerta area or wherever, and I'm building a network of people. I'm going out into town and I'm talking to folks. My job is not to be safe. My job is to be exposed to the most dangerous people. I'm trying to bust into that cartel, but not just the cartel, into the government. I'm trying to bust in anywhere I can, become everybody's friend. I call this guy Johnny Goodtime. Hey, everybody, Johnny Goodtime. And everybody wants to hang out with Pete. So I'm making connections and just starting to slowly build a network of things. I might rotate in every couple of months. Maybe I'm working under a cover. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm Pete from the Army. So I don't know exactly how they built sources, but for sure, sources were being built, phone numbers were being grabbed, meetings were being set up, and this can take months, years to get to a point where you can cause the operation can then be born. So as you build this information up, you're feeding it to the commander, whoever the commander is, whatever level they are, and they're like, hey, get me a little more of this, get me a little more of that. You're kind of being tasked out to find this information, find these sources who have the things that you need, so that the military could then say, okay, great. It's not like we chase one target and then 2 days later we take them out. You've got a whole ocean of targets that you're dealing with and sorting through. You putting something on the boss's desk, whether it's a general, an admiral, the president, and then they're saying yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And you might still work that same target for years, multiple agents rotating in and out. So it's hard to say when this began, but it didn't begin 5 days ago. It began a long time ago to build that relationship network so that you could then find and fix someone with the intel.
Yeah, Grant, I'm going to go to you for a second. I just realized all 4 of us are veterans here on the show today. The 3 of us off to the side there, all Army guys, and then we have you as an Air Force guys. You did some support work for intelligence work, flying platforms that did intelligence collection and stuff. And we look back to when they took down the different terrorists and cartel leaders in Central and South America, a lot of signals intelligence. Do you think that the United States was using those types of platforms to support an operation like this and feed intel to the Mexicans?
I really don't know. I was a KC-135 pilot, so we refueled airplanes, and I flew E-3s for a while during the Iran-Iraq War, and that was a whole different kind of operation. But at the end of the day, I'm sure that with the advancement of technology since my time in the 1980s, that there's all kinds of opportunities to collect all kinds of information by various sources. So both, U.S., Russian, Chinese, satellites, things like that.
Yeah. Hal, I'm going to bring it back in there for a second. We know Pablo Escobar was taken down using SIGINT. I mean, they were listening to those phone calls, tracking him down.
Absolutely.
How did the cartels evolve after knowing that that's how we grabbed and were able to take out Escobar? What changes did you see? What was that evolution like?
Well, as you and Pete know, the day that Pablo was executed down there on that rooftop, that night, one of the one of the family members of the Tijuana corridor, the Arellano Felix family, flew into to Acapulco. I was down there in a joint CIA DEA operation undercover, and he actually came and spent the night at the house where I was operational at the time on the mission. And we hadn't known that Pablo had been hit. We hadn't seen the news or nothing because we were involved in something that required us not being on cell phones. I can't even to this day talk about it too much, but I can explain to you this. When Raul came in, Arellano Felix came into the house, he was in tears and he was crying, and he says, they just took out our boss. And we're all sitting there going, what the hell are you talking about? And he says, Don Pablo, he's dead. So we turned the news on, and of course we saw it on the news, but that's how I heard about it. I heard about it before it even came to fruition, where all of you probably heard about it before we did, and we were actively involved with this guy. But the point I'm making is this: the transitioning of these cartels, when you take out somebody of such extreme significance, it's it's hard to describe the moment that things like that go on, because almost instantly the Cali cartel came into play and took over that post immediately. It was done. There was no flaw, there was no delay, there was no weakness noted in the transitioning of power, especially to that extreme. And as you also know, I was around Chapo at the time that Chapo actually went down and negotiated with Don Pablo to start flying multiple tons of cocaine into the northern regions of Mexico, where he controlled several of the tunnels that he had constructed and other avenues of getting it through the corridors there, especially Juarez. Boy, I mean, it was just really, really crazy times when that went down. But
Yeah.
in the early, when Don Pablo was executed, I was already, as I've stated earlier, operational with the Department of Justice. And as you two gentlemen know, and our guest that's on the show today, I was recruited out of Leavenworth Federal Prison by the Department of Justice to become a contractor. And I spent 17 years of my life undercover paying back for what I had done in my younger years.
Right.
So my insight on this, especially you, brother, you know, working law enforcement on the border, my time, it has evolved so much since my time in the years that I was actively involved in transporting narcotics into the United States. It's a whole new process, a whole new system. I mean, I've been involved in, you talk about the political ladder. If you recall, when I was originally kidnapped, when I was undercover in Culiacan, Sinaloa, before I was captured in Central America, I was kidnapped because I was going to buy 3,000 kilos of cocaine from a general in the Mexican army who just got it from the president of Mexico's brother. And this stuff is known knowledge and confirmed, so I can talk about it. You know, that's the magnitude of the influence and the involvement that these cartels had back in the early 1990s and late 1980s when I was actively involved. At that point, no more smuggling, but doing stateside distribution.
Right. Well, let's move a little bit from that part of it.
Can I ask a question, Ken, real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I told you I wasn't going to ask any questions. I guess I lied to you. Sorry about that.
A CI
wanted to
guy
ask
not
Hal.
telling the truth. How do you know?
I know. You trusted a spy. Shame on you. Hey, Hal, here's my question for you. When something like this happens, right? So whether let's do the operator side. You're operating, you're in Mexico, this goes down. What's your tasking once El Mencho is dead? How does that change your day-to-day activity, whether you're in that area or not? How does Hal, the operator, act?
That is an excellent question. I was actually down there smuggling marijuana when they killed DEA agent Kiki Camarena over there in the state of Jalisco. And what I did was immediately got the hell out of Mexico, and I stayed out of country for 8 months. And when I got word that Special Agent Camarena had been executed, at that moment, I got word of his kidnapping. This is before they found him. We just got that, and I was in Guadalajara at that time picking up some marijuana at a ranch just outside of the city limits where Rafael Cara Quintero was moving bales. And we got word about the kidnapping, and like I said, brother, I immediately got out of there because I knew all hell was going to break loose. That was the first time ever that a DEA agent had been taken down in that country, and they had no idea what they were in for. And Felix Gallardo, who was the godfather of all of the godfathers and the cartels at that time when he brought them all together in unity, tried to stop that kidnapping from actually from occurring because he knew of the ramifications. And sure enough, not 2 years later, look what happened to all the cartels. I mean, they were back to being individual organizations. They separated. Power becomes it becomes invisible, gentlemen, because what happens is so much attention becomes drawn to the upper echelons that keep these cartels in existence, like the government and the people that were involved in the politics, even in the statehood politics right there in the state of Jalisco. It becomes very, very volatile, and everybody wants to hide from everybody else. And like I said, my reaction, I didn't even take a load out that day. I said, to hell with it, I'm getting the hell out of here. But, I also have former military background, and I have knowledge and experience about how we would react to executing a federal agent.
Sure.
Let me ask the drug smuggler guy, the kingpin guy who's got to go do business. How does that guy respond when someone on your team gets whacked or gets killed? However, El Mencho dies. When that happens and you're on the smuggling side, what's your behavior?
I was at that time when that went down. That's an excellent question. The thing is to become as invisible and remove yourself from that region as quickly and as carefully as possible, making sure you don't leave any type of an exit channel behind you that can be monitored or followed. And what I do is I would hit the 28-kilometer zone, pass through the zone, and then I'd scrape off the interior Teresa sticker on my car, get it washed while I was in the border town, and then I would throw a couple things in the back seat of the car and make it look like I'd just come into Mexico for the afternoon. So I would disqualify that position of someone that was in the interior. You got to realize by the time I hit the border on that specific day, they had found his body, and all hell was it was unbelievable. I mean, it was unbelievable. And they were looking for anybody and everybody they could find that they could connect to that execution process. And but I got out of there. I went through Nogales and made it out. Thank God.
Yeah, let's go back to Grant for a minute. I want to talk a little bit about the human side of this. Grant, we're coming up on spring break. A lot of Americans travel to Mexico during spring break. A lot of people are calling now to cancel that kind of stuff. Is this just as you were saying, a sudden show that's in public areas that's not normally there, or is this something you have to be conscious of all the time when you're an expatriate or traveling into Mexico that these things are going on?
Well, here in Puerto Vallarta, it's always been known as a very safe, very tourist-friendly place. Cruise
Yes.
ships come and go all week long during the high season, which we're in now. And the restaurants, the bars, the beaches they're all wonderful. This is a great place to be and to live. And I think that this caught everyone a little bit off guard. And when these kind of things happen, the community slows down and really takes a pause. And then as they work themselves out, usually things and hopefully things from this point on will return slowly back to normal. This is a big profit center for the state and for the country. It's a national jewel, if you will. So no one wants to see this turn into something awful that, isn't available to the public any longer. My sense is that, you guys are the experts on the deeper issue here, but my issue just is the people. It's like all the shop owners, the barkeepers, the Uber drivers, everyone is hoping that this will all just eventually work itself out. And it is what it is. I mean, we all know that the narcotics trafficking isn't necessarily a Mexican issue exclusively. If there wasn't customers in the U.S. and Canada, this issue would be something else. I mean, it's a demand side issue. It's not an issue of a one-sided issue of just people pushing drugs on little Johnny and Susie America. I mean, they want to buy them. They like them. And I think we need to deal as Americans and Canadians with our drug problem. That would change the dynamic quite a bit. You can't blame people for servicing a demand. I mean, it's a natural business. And honestly, I think that, you guys know, things could have been a lot worse here if it was really directed at the population, but it wasn't. This was a message, in my view, as somebody that's been watching politics for 40 years, this was a message. And I think the government's got the message. So the ball's in their court to see what they're going to do next.
Right. Hundreds of thousands of Americans live at least part-time, if not full-time, in Mexico. When you guys get together and talk and things, how much does local politics come into play? Is it something that American expatriates are watching the local politics, or do they just sort of keep themselves removed from those types of things? There you go.
You're breaking up a little bit. I'm not catching all of that.
Let me try again. With the hundreds of thousands of Americans living down in Mexico, how involved do they get in local politics, or do they just completely stay clear of it and let things run its course?
People don't really get involved in politics here or don't really want to be involved in politics. There's obviously a language barrier. Most people that come to places like Puerto Vallarta or Rosarito up in Baja or Cabo. I mean, unless you're bilingual and fully fluent, you're really not going to grasp most of what's going on anyway. So, I mean, people come here to live and relax and enjoy the sun and the beach and the golf courses. But no, you don't, and you really can't. I mean, you can't donate money to political campaigns. You can't work on political campaigns here. It's prohibited by law, by Mexican law, and they had enough of that over the centuries of foreign occupations and European governments that basically colonized this whole part of the world. So everybody here, I think, just wants everyone to, just stay at home, relax, let things work themselves out, and then get back to the golf course and the beach and walking your dog along the Malecon.
So you've been down
to this.
Yeah, go ahead, Pete.
I was going to say, when you're in an area that it's non-permissive, there's war going on, shelter in place, everybody. Well, life still has to go on. And so even when you're in a combat zone, people are still getting a haircut. They still got to go shop. They still have to make money. And so these things happen in real time. And so you're sort of just hoping like today is not my day. You go about your life and you just get used to a level of instability that seems shocking to all of us. But if you're in Mexico, or anywhere, like when you think about when we have unrest in a city, most of the city's fine. Like there's nothing going on, right? And so if you're in that one area, you'd want to leave that area. So if you're an Uber driver and you're like, there's craziness going on over there, and your fare wants to go that way, well, you just don't do it. And so you find a way to manage that risk and live within that battle. That's how humans have always done that. You don't understand that unless you see it, but very normal to operate normally and just kind of wait out whatever that thing is. Because that chaos, it's hard to sustain that. And the other thing I would say, this goes back to what Hal was saying. When Hal triggers, right? So here's what we know. Like, we're going to go do the operation. So I don't always have a job to do, especially like if the kinetic thing is happening. I might be there, but I might also say, hey, let me watch and see the guys that we have pegged, see what happens, see how they act. And if they rat trail out of town, I want to see that. So we've lifted the carpet. Everybody scatters. Who scatters? Those are the people I want to find. We want to find and fix those guys with intel too. So there's a lot of things that happen once the event happens. The SIGINT turns on. They're possibly directing me. Can you go find this guy Hal? See if you can, figure out someone who knows him. And I'm not going to go chase Hal, but I'm going to do my best to find somebody. Like, hey, where's Hal? Has anybody seen Hal? No. Oh, should I? Oh, that guy Money. And then someone might go, oh, you know, Money. Oh, let me tell you. Let me get you his number, right? And so this is how I'm chasing and helping take that event and then add extra stuff to amplify the impact of that event. How did I do, Hal?
You did exactly right. And that's why I was making that comment just a few minutes earlier about getting the hell out of that zone as rapidly as possible. And the reason being is because I was known. And as you know, when they were creating a transcript for a motion picture on my life a few years ago through Voyage Media, they had a retired ATF agent who was writing the transcript. And he goes, Hal, I was down there at the exact time you were in those years, and we remember seeing your name coming across. Well, see, I was aware of all that. We had people that were politically involved that were in the drug cartel that would let us know that we were being, heated up or looked upon or whatever it may be during that moment. And that's why I got the hell out of Mexico as rapidly. So you hit that on the head, Pete. That's exactly what you do. You just start throwing names out and excuses why you want to see this guy. Like you said, money owed or things of this nature. That's just spot on.
I want to bring Pete back in for a second here and ask another question. Pete, zoom out to 10,000 feet. You talk to a lot of people involved in politics and different things of life. Is this going to be a change to how the United States has its relationship with Mexico? Or are we seeing an evolution in the Trump era now between on these relations? And how do you see that playing out?
Hal and I have sort of discussed this, and I know a smuggler, not Hal. I know another one who knows how to move things. And so when I talk to that person, basically he's like, look, we're a corporation. We're going to make money, or we're going to adapt to the presidential environment. And if it's permissive here or restricted there, it's like, it doesn't matter. We have ways to do all of this. And when we don't have ways, we invent new ways. The market evolves. So, here's the thing. Grant is 100% right. We love sex. We love low-wage workers. We love drugs. Jesus Christ, we love drugs. And because of that, we're a market, and that corporation is going to service this market. So, and this will sound crazy, and I know how, and we've talked about this. The cartels will have envoys. They will go into DC and they will negotiate whatever it is they're going to negotiate.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
guess what? A dude like me wants to know those guys because I want to know the guys that they know that are bad guys, not just drug guys. You got guys moving nuclear stuff. You got guys moving weapons. I want to know who all of the shittiest people in a region. I want to know all of them. And so if I make friends with Hal, I don't care how much weed you sell. Don't care. What I care about is who do you know? Who do you
Intel.
think is dangerous? And I'll say one more thing, and then I'll shut up. And Grant hinted at this. A lot of this is political to Mexico. And it's their communication of saying, hey, you're over the line. Like, you can try to lay low and be invisible, but if someone's like, I am desperate to see you, if they see that person, you might think you're laying low, and they might decide that the other side may decide that you're gonna get it. So
Yeah.
you don't know when you need to lay lower if you're going to have to operate in an area. And if you've used up your allowance in that region, politically, militarily, whatever it is, and someone chooses you, you're chosen. And that's the game these guys play. It's a lethal, dangerous game. And so a lot
Very.
of times this stuff is a one-time poof. There'll be some chaos, but then it'll settle back down, and then it'll kind of find its status quo.
Yeah. Well, let's stay up at 10,000 feet and bring Grant back into the center screen. Grant, business-wise, the United States needs Mexico. Mexico's much more convenient than a lot of other places that we could source products from, not just illegal, illicit products, but manufacturing. A lot of American companies are heavily invested in Mexico, and we're very interconnected and intertied with Mexico as a consumer of the products they produce, other than the illicit products we were talking about. How has that relationship changed in the last 10 years or so? And is it on the right track, or do more adjustments need to be made?
I think it's definitely on the right track. Mexico is the U.S.'s biggest trading partner, if I recall. I mean,
Yes,
I don't
it
think
is.
that's changed, but I mean, they're by far and away our biggest trading partner. The maquiladora companies on the border, all the major world's auto manufacturers have assembly plants here. You can't buy a Maytag or Whirlpool or GE product for your kitchen that doesn't have either some parts or is wholly made in Mexico. I mean, this is a big deal. The Mexicans are highly educated. They have great schools. They have a hard-working population, a great work ethic, and in general, they're the salt of the earth people. I mean, there's a reason that people come here, and it's because this is a welcoming, wonderful place to be. And like the U.S., there's problems here, there's tragedy here, there's crime here in certain areas, but in general, this is a really, really great neighbor to have. So I can't say enough for the Mexicans and the people here. I really love the country, and it's just been a great experience for me since the early 1980s.
Yeah, a lot of people don't miss that point, and that the entire history of the United States, we've had a very close relationship. They have always been our neighbor ever since there was a United States, whether it be Spain or Mexico. But these same people have been our neighbors, and because of that, we've had to interact. And we've seen these changes since the 80s, and I know you and Hal and I, Grant, have seen them at the ease of crossing the border. Used to be a much easier kind of thing
Oh,
to
yeah.
do. I famously, for years when I was a deputy on the border, we'd park in the Border Patrol parking lot in Calexico and take off our gun belts and take off our uniform shirts and our vests, and then walk into Mexico with, a group of American guys wearing green pants and black boots and white t-shirts. And it wasn't an issue. And then we saw that change over the years. So, we need Mexico. Mexico needs us. We need Mexico. How do we improve that relationship? So I'm going to go back to you, Hal, for a minute. Hal, what can we as the United States do, not just as individual people, but as a government and a country? What can we do to de-escalate any tensions and to make things better with Mexico?
I absolutely love what Grant was saying a few minutes ago, brother, and it's relative to what you just asked me. In 1969 and 1970, Grant, I was 15 and 16 years old, living in a small village at a mining camp in Durango, Mexico. And when you talk about the people and how magnificent these people are, as a child at the age of 15, with no mom, no dad, nobody down there, I was completely down there. I'd never even heard Spanish spoken before. But how they opened the doors to their homes. And I mean, everybody in Walterio, the town that I was in the mining camp outside of, I was welcome in all of their homes. I was immediately embraced as one of the people. And they said, aquí en su corazón vive la sangre de la ciudad. In my heart would pump the blood of that village into return. So, you talk about a love and beautiful people, man, I just put such a stamp on that. And it also prompted my desire to become a smuggler for them when they approached me when I came back after my military service to visit the village. And, they gave me instruction to bring a specific car down. They were going to cut compartments in it, which they did. And they trained me. They taught me how to become a smuggler when I was 20 years old. But getting back to the people, the resource, the value of our relationship with Mexico is so critically important. And you're right, the manufacturing that goes on down there in that country, so much of that comes into play in the assemblage and construction of not only vehicles but appliances and many other things. Also, this might sound ridiculous, but the avocado market in Mexico has a significant agricultural play here in the United States of America. And even those type of organizations are attacked by the cartels. So as we see this transformation of law and taking out these top players that couldn't have been done during my time, that was impossible. And we see it now. It's becoming regular since the new administration on both the United States and in Mexico have come into play. So that's my take on that, brother.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think that's all valid and important stuff. Pete, I'm going to put you back center. You're in Southern California as you sit here today. Having grown up in Southern California, I just know that incredible link between the Mexican people and the people in Southern California. I consider Mexican food my native food. I grew up eating that. Have you seen anything, or what are you seeing locally with the relationships with Mexico as people talk? I mean, you're literally sitting, an hour and a half off the border?
If that,
If that, depending on the traffic on the 5 freeway.
Sure. Yeah. Did you say
is
4
that
hours? I think it would take forever.
Is that relationship changing in the last couple of years? Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? Is it staying the same? Or do people not really care?
So, and this is not a political response, but we are very comfortable with folks from Mexico who are clearly not licensed to be here. Like that's part of what this place is. And so with that comes their own little sub economies, like we know that the folks who have the food carts, a lot of them are undocumented, right? And a lot of them aren't trying to cause any trouble. And so we find a good way to blend that all of that stuff, that milieu of like, hey, there's people here who are trying to figure out how to come to America in some kind of form or fashion. There's a little less of that right now. There's some of those, areas where you'll see the gentlemen gather in the evening after they've worked or are trying to find work. There's less of that. That's the biggest difference I see. Less out in the open, but it's also kind of calmed down a little bit, and so you're starting to see that come back because these little communities depend on that money locally. It's easy to throw out the entire group of people and say like, oh, they're all illegals, and okay, there's some truth to that, but also that whole strip mall, that whole section of that strip mall is kept alive by all these folks who are coming in there. They're getting their haircut. They're buying things at the store. They have their own grocery market. So that I would say is like probably the thing that you probably don't realize about Southern California is Mexico and California is very well blended here in the United States. And heck, my brother's in-laws are from Mexico, and I see them all the time, and they travel back and forth all the time. Now they're legal, but they weren't for a long time, and we still loved them. They were still wonderful people, and I'm stoked that they get to come back and forth. They're like the ideal Americans. I'm saying big America. I'm not saying like United States American. They're incredible. They go out and they see their grandkids all over this nation. They have the ability to travel back and forth between the countries. It's incredible. I love it. So that's what I would say to all that is that most of what we do is working. It's just when we have crazy criminals doing criminally insane stuff and causing rape, destruction, murder, and all that kind of thing. That's not what we need. So somewhere in there is the answer. It's not Pete's job to know that.
Yeah, I'm going to bring Grant back in for a second. Grant, where do you see the growth areas in this economic, handshake we have with Mexico? And I don't even know if it's a handshake. It may be the left hand and the right hand because we are so intertwined with the stuff. But where's the next economic growth area that's going to affect both countries?
Well, I'll tell you an area that's really growing in Mexico is the tech area. In Guadalajara and Mexico City, especially Guadalajara, it is the Silicon Valley of Mexico. There are a lot of tech companies, a lot of startups there. There's a lot of incubators there that bring in people to do technical work, coders. I know AI is coming and is going to change some of that maybe, but they're working on that too. So yeah, again, Guadalajara is full of universities and full of university graduates. All these young men and women are STEM capable graduates and undergraduates. So their tech skills are superb. Manufacturing, people that literally make everything from vitamins to zippers for your jeans. They make all of these things. They're technical wizards when it comes to doing this kind of stuff. Mexico is less encumbered by government regulation when it comes to doing business. So it's a lot easier. I'm not saying that there's no regulation. I'm not saying there's no oversight, but the regulation and oversight and licensing is designed for you to be successful. It's not designed like it is in the US in many situations to impede your ability to be successful. So I think this place is it's an up and coming place with a lot of potential. There's 150 million people here. Like I said, they're highly educated and they have a huge and growing middle class. So they're vested in seeing the country's success. And it just isn't poor people and rich people here. I can name 100 people that I know that are upper middle class types that would be very successful in the U.S. So it's a huge place for us. I think it's a great deal, and I'm looking forward to many, many, many more decades of this great relationship continuing.
Yeah, I'm going to keep you there for a second, Grant, because I want to talk about the tourism industry real quick. I mean, it really is a tourism hotspot in our immediate backyard. I mean, this literally, it is our backyard. You mentioned earlier the cruise ships going in and out. Last time I was in Mexico was on a cruise ship pulling in. So do you think that the tourism industry is going to continue to be as strong as it is? And how much do these types of things that are going on today have an effect on the tourism industry?
These things that are happening today have a short-term effect. I mean, the buses aren't running in Puerta Vallarta now. So the government has told the transportation industry that they have to stand down. So if you don't have buses moving, you don't have people going to and from work. Most people here travel by bus. They don't travel by private auto. So it's pretty quiet. It's like COVID lockdown kind of quiet right now in this part of Mexico and the Puerto Vallarta area. But having said that, I think that, everybody understands that the tourism industry is one of the linchpins. We have oil and gas, mining, tourism, agriculture, and manufacturing. Those are the big deals that Mexico needs to be successful. And I don't think tourism is going to go away anytime soon. I don't think people are going to be dissuaded from coming here. In the short term, yes. In the long term, no. I just don't see that happening.
Do you think that the need to protect that industry might be the key to winding down some of these problems, that the Mexican people will make the realization that, it is such a linchpin, as you said, and we need to sustain it, so that we need to take a different course when it comes to dealing with some of these problems like the international drug trade?
I don't see that as a solution. I think that, fighting these guys is never a good thing. In my view, I just think that, again, the problem is the demand side problem. It's not a supply side problem. As long as there's a demand, someone is going to deliver to that customer what they want. And the Mexican people understand that. They know that, this is not driven by Mexican drug addicts. You know, this is driven by American drug addicts, Canadian drug addicts, people that just can't say no, as Nancy Reagan, so famously said, just say
Yeah,
no.
let me cut in for a second. Let us not forget the human sex trafficking market that comes out of that country. And we are the
And
biggest,
that as well,
we are the biggest provider for those type of pedophilic people in the world. I've worked a couple cases, and I've actually been on ranches where I've seen rooms packed full of children that were heading north. Cocaine and marijuana, you use it one time only. You can take a child's body and you can flip it multiple times daily and until they exist out.
Well, Hal, I'm going to keep you on the center frame, and I'm going to call on you as sort of our expert on human frailty. And I think Grant's point is spot on about, the demand side of it and everything else. How do we attack that? I mean, we've been attacking the demand of intoxicants in our country since the very beginning. Temperance movements, prohibition. We've never been able to adequately attack that. So what is the key? What is the secret? What do we need to be concentrating on to eliminate that demand portion that Grant spoke of?
God, that's an excellent question. And I tell you, we had this discussion once before, and trying to educate and rethink the population of the United States, we've seen that as an absolute failure. I think what we need to do is we need to heighten the laws. If you get caught trafficking a child, you should be executed as far as I'm concerned. But a minimum life with no hope for parole, because those type of people, the pedophiles, they repeat, they can't stop. When I was in Folsom Prison in the 80s, I remember 2 of them being released one day and both of them begging to not even go outside of the walls, because they themselves were admitting there at the administration when we were all getting out that day that they knew they would just reoffend. The same thing is applicable to a high-level addiction. I've known, as you know, I've had my doctorate since 2004. I've worked over 20 years with addicts in the homeless community. I have a lot of background experience in that regard. And the problem with putting them through rehab facilities, try to transform their thinking processes, it's forced on them. You have to want to do that. It's like me quitting cigarettes 16 days ago. I'd finally hit a point in life where I said, to hell with it. I've been smoking 50 years. I'm done. And the point was I had made the decision. I didn't have some counselor making those decisions or trying to rethink me. And Ken, that's the problem that we have up here, is the ignorance. When we look at it systematically, how do we reconstruct the way that people approach drug use, weapons violations, human sex traffic violations? It has to go beyond re-educating people, because a lot of people aren't willing to accept re-education.
Yeah.
That's admitting you're doing something wrong. And unfortunately, we have an ego-based society up here that doesn't like to admit when they're wrong.
Yeah, so I'm going to bring Grant back in, because we're going to need to say goodbye to him real quick, because he's got another commitment. We appreciate you coming on, Grant, and giving us your
perspective. It's nice to meet you, Grant.
Nice to meet you guys.
Yeah,
you're very welcome. Come visit anytime. You're going to love Puerta Vallarta.
I do.
Okay.
It's a beautiful town.
You have, so it's a great place, and the people are wonderful. So best of luck to you all. I'm happy to talk to you anytime. Thanks for including me today.
Yeah, Grant,
we're
going to have you back, because you and I are going to have a conversation about Africa and just projects that we're working on.
I can't wait for that. That's another place that I'm really keen on. So that's great.
All right. Well, thanks, Grant. You be safe down there. God bless you. Take care. Best to everybody down there with you, and we're going to continue on. So thanks, Grant. Appreciate it.
Thanks, my friends. Bye.
Yeah. I didn't know you were involved in Africa. I've got Pete and I may be heading over to Kenya, hopefully this year. I've been involved with an archbishop there in Kenya for over 5 years. And that's really exciting to hear, Ken, that you have something going on in that country. I'm very, very dialed into getting over there.
Yeah, no, we'll have to continue our talk. Grant and I are sort of focused on Uganda right now and doing some work and putting some things together in Uganda. So it's exciting.
Wow.
As you understand, and we're looking at it as fortunes are made on the frontier. And right now, Africa is one of the last frontiers in the United States. So let's continue on with this, and we'll wrap it up here in the next 10 minutes or so. But we've got a long history of not always getting along with Mexico too. Though we as a people have always gotten along, there have been times where Mexico has been threatening towards us. There's been times where we've been threatening towards Mexico. We invaded Mexico in 1916, a little over 100 years ago. It wasn't the first time. We invaded Mexico in the 1840s. So there's been that kind of connection. Let's look for a few minutes of what can we do, again, to just lower this temperature. Hal, from your point of view, what can we do to lower the temperature and not allow these problems to affect us here?
Well, I think one of the biggest concerns we have right now is an interest of the American military going into Mexico itself. Bear in mind, that's a very sensitive subject. You were in law enforcement for a number of years. Pete, you were operational for a number of years. You know exactly what I'm getting at when I make that statement. The fragility, if you will, of the society accepting military involvement from their northern friends. And it's a real concern that I have right now. And I absolutely stand behind the Mexican president and a lot of the initiatives that she's bringing forth and her steadfast concern about having military activity coming into their country. Now, I do believe that we could send military advisors, the CIA, people to that in that caliber, and maybe possibly educating and retraining, if you will, their military special forces teams, people that would be very beneficial in basically going after the head of the snake in each of these communities that they're being confronted with those type of violent and apolitically backed organizations.
Yeah, I mean, one of the advantages that we have being a multicultural nation is that we have people of these backgrounds that speak these languages, and it's an advantage with a place like Mexico. It's a disadvantage in, let's say, someplace like China or other areas where we don't have the same type of it. You know, my Mexican American friends are as true blue American as anybody else, and you know, the ability to speak those languages and do that, and I've got parts of my family that are very much Hispanic background. So, Pete, let's talk about security again for the end. What is the threat as you see it right now between these two countries? We know what's going on the border. We've talked about it.
Yeah.
What's going on behind the scenes? What's going on when you don't have a guy in a green pickle suit on the border and with his Border Patrol agent badge on? What's that next level back in protecting our country from these types of things affecting us?
This is just me and my style. So I would say the biggest threat is us not being on offense enough, you know, sitting back and reacting. You got to be willing to put people on the ground. You got to be willing to expose them to danger so that you can go out and find dangerous people. This is just going to be what I always say on this stuff. If you want to work in this field, somebody has to be out front, outside the wire, in front of the wall, talking to the locals, so that when there are questions, maybe you can get in front of it and tamp it down when there's a problem, or maybe you can find out that something is brewing earlier. But it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable work. It's hard work, and so I see that as a vulnerability all the time. Why does that happen? Well, for a lot of reasons. One of the reasons why it happens is we bleed talent in the intel world. We focus so much internally on who's coming at us, we don't go at anybody, not reliably. And when we do, it's hyperkinetic. So I'm not talking about necessarily that part of it, but how do you collect intel in a way that is tactically and strategic in its focus? But a lot of the people that I knew that were in the military and counterintelligence when I was in, a lot of them just got out because the military is like, well, whatever, you know. And so you don't develop agents that are seasoned in this kind of work. It's easy to stay. It's not hard. It's not easier. I should say it's preferable to stay inside the embassy. It's more fun to go work in DC, you know, go live in Silver City or somewhere, make a bunch of money than to be, hey, Pete, can you go live in Aqaba for 2 years and tell us everything you know, and you can learn, meet everybody you can like. That's not as easy to do. And maybe Aqaba doesn't ever pay off. Maybe you've got to be somewhere else, and I got to go live in Reynosa or somewhere else to get closer to where things are happening. But we don't like that. We don't like that risk profile, and we just don't, from my point of view, we don't think offensively there. So I would say that's the biggest thing is there's opportunities for us to get closer to the top in other places from a ground up approach. I don't think we do enough of it.
Yeah.
Fascinating. That was really interesting, Pete. And thank you for that explanation. Crystal clear. And I agree with you completely. A lot of talent is leaving these various agencies and departments that we really need to see refortified. And how the hell do we do that? Simple. We get cooperation with a sovereign nation like Mexico, and we combine our resources together to take on the enemy that we're focusing on. Is that, in your opinion, the proper channel?
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but they still have to allow you to do it. You know,
Yeah,
look
yeah,
at
there
us
is
now.
that.
Look, I'm going to be 100% honest. When you said, and then I went through Nogales, I thought, oh man, I'd like to go to Nogales. Look,
Yeah.
this is not what I'm actually going to do, but my brain goes, yeah, because there they got beautiful women. They like to have a good time. Man,
Oh,
I'd
yeah.
love to go to Nogales right now. I'm not actually going to do that, but that's where my brain goes because that's how I think in terms of spy stuff. Like, man, that'd be a great place. I could start a network from there. That's exactly where my brain goes because that's how we're wired, Hal, right? Like, I'm not trying to commit any crimes. I'm not trying to harm anybody, but the people that are willing to go do that, man, they don't fit good inside of an institution.
No,
Hal,
no. And as you well know, we had people that were on payroll that were at the border, and we were told designated times to wait till a shift came to an end and then to cross under a certain lane. And we had all that down going through
Yeah,
all this.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
our brother Ken in law enforcement, he knows that to be very accurate and true. We've had a discussion about that very thing, huh, brother?
We have, and you know, here's when I want to throw a question at both of you guys, and we'll go to Hal first, and then go to Pete. We've talked about these attitudes and this close relationship with this specific country, and it's different than our relationship with anybody else because it's just foreign enough that it's not like us. Canada, I've said for years, 55th or 51st through 56 states. They're generally the same as us, even though their politics has gone a little more towards the radical side, not their politicians, I say, not necessarily their people. But do we view Mexico differently, and are we doing ourselves a disservice because we are so close to it, and it's harder for us to look at them per se as an adversary or an enemy because they are us. We are them. Hal, to you first. What do you think? Is that affecting our ability to respond to these kinds of things?
I absolutely agree with you completely. And I think that our approach to Mexico in this current atmosphere, if you will, is cautionary. There's a lot more caution with decision-making processes that we need to do to eliminate some of the larger problems that we are currently being confronted with. And Mexico on the reverse side had the same exact concern with our trade tariffs and our trade relations right now entering into the United States. I mean, there's truck drivers that are being stopped if they don't speak English in our country right now, and they are being detained and shipments are being held. And I don't think that that's very smart, but to each their own. Right now, that is the current administration's way that they are in play with regards to how they're responding to our southern friends and family and business people that we deal with out of that country. So it's a real convoluted mess right now. We don't know which way to go with the stuff because what's happening is crime is evolving so rapidly in those countries, Ken. And you in law enforcement, I can only imagine what you must think at times when you're watching this information on a daily basis, how much it has transitioned from the times that you and I were actively involved in our border life on both sides of the fence.
Yeah. So, Pete, I'm going to go back to you. The same thing. How does this change the equation? These are our brothers and sisters. You know, I guarantee you served with agents that have a Hispanic background, Hispanic nature, may have even, you know, had family in that country. This is us. How does that affect our attitude in realizing and tackling the actual problems and issues as they exist?
Man, I don't know. It's a tough question for me to answer because it's you know, I'm more of like the guy who grabs his backpack and goes and does the stuff. You know, maybe there's cash in it, maybe there's whiskey, right? And so I suppose, look, whoever runs the administration, whether it's this politician or that politician, I'm not even worried about these politicians right now. Just any of them are going to have an approach. They're going to have a desire to go do something. If you wanted to curtail things, you could simply say, we're putting a brigade on the other side of the border. There's fucking nothing you can do about it. That'd be true. Just like an aircraft carrier showing up in the Sea of Cortez. I mean, it would fit in there, but there'd be nothing anybody could do. We could do that if we wanted to. For whatever reason, we don't. Mostly because we don't want to be jerks. But that means we have to suffer the chaos of the things that come out of there, like cartels taking over the government. And listen, the cartels are are still tied into our government. Our government loves drugs. It's
Oh,
just
yeah.
going to be true. And the people love drugs. The
And
government
money.
are the people. Yeah, and money. Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
So all of that makes it a challenge. And I don't know that anybody has the right answer to get us from here to a better place. You know, the Trump administration is going to bet on financial like partnership, you know, to be like, hey, let's all make more money and that'll help things out. Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. I don't know. But
Yeah.
the next guy's going to come and be like, no, it's goats. Everybody's got to have a goat. And you'd be like, all right, I don't know if that's right. Shit, maybe it is. Who knows? But it's like just this change, constant change. We are a chaos generator. So wherever we go, wherever we interact, the United States creates instability. That's the first rule. The second rule is we refuse to accept the first rule. So we'll go somewhere, inject $10 million where there would never be that much money, and then go, why are they all so corrupt? The people are all corrupt. We're like handing out money everywhere. We're the corrupter, right? So I don't know.
Interesting.
I don't know how you do something like that without tearing apart the normal political power structures in any kind of place. You're like, we're going to go to Venezuela, and I love that we think we have a good plan, but here's the thing. We're not reliable at that stuff. So yeah.
And Colombia doesn't think it's a good plan.
Yeah, right. Well,
are you following them right now with this? Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, it creates chaos, right? And so, yes, even if you're going in the right direction, as you try to fix this thing, we'll assume that Venezuela is going to be in a better spot 10 years from now. But there's a lot of external chaos that gets created too. Guyana, Colombia, it's a challenge to get right. And I don't think anybody's smart enough to pick one direction and say this is the direction to go. So I think some of this is we just have to withstand some amount of insecurity and instability to get through to wherever it is that we're trying to go. And I don't know that we know where we're going. How did I do, Ken?
Well, you got someplace. We don't know if we got where we wanted to get, but you definitely got someplace there, Pete. You know, was talking about this closeness of the relationship, and I point out something that many people might not realize. We are so comfortable with Mexico. We're so secure with Mexico that some of our most sensitive military bases literally straddle the border with Mexico. Yeah, and at times they may have been built there for a different purpose, but we kept them there. We didn't put our most sensitive bases when we were in Germany post-World War II, right on the border with East Germany per se, or right on the border with the communist country. But you talk about Fort Huachuca, you know, Pete and I know well, right on, literally straddling the border. I'm sure Pete, as I have experienced illegal migrants walking through the base because they came over the mountain. And all of a sudden they didn't realize that on the other side of that mountain was that base. Fort Bliss in Texas. I mean, we do huge things sitting there right there in El Paso on the border. We wouldn't be doing that. We wouldn't be sustaining that if we didn't feel comfortable with Mexico and have that type of relationship where we felt we could do that. So I don't know how important it is to park an aircraft carrier in the Gulf of Cortez because, you know, Naval Air Facility El Centro, just there west of El Centro between, El Centro and crossing into San Diego County is literally within a couple miles of the border. So we have the ability to pre-position that. San Diego, as we all know, huge military presence in San Diego.
Right at the border.
Right at the border. So we know that. So, well, we're coming to the end of our show. We're going to take some time to wrap. Pete, I'm going to go to you first and let Hal finish it off at the end. So, Pete, give us your final thoughts on this subject.
Yeah, I guess the thing I would say to anybody who's overly concerned about this, it's the start of World War III. It is not. It is not the start of World War III. This political violence is just that. It's political violence. And then once that message has been sent, things tend to calm down. Cue chaos going on for weeks after this. But the reality is that kind of chaos takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of money, takes a lot of time. And folks don't have time and money like that. They just need to go to work and do the next thing. So that guy who's trying to drive his Uber from here to there, he's the norm. And so when all that craziness goes on, pretty quick, that'll have to calm down because that's how conflict works. So don't allow this to run into some bigger conflict because it's just very hard. It's like trying to start a fire with ice. You know, I mean, like the actual cold frozen water substance. It's just it's very difficult to make a change into something that already works in a way that makes sense for a lot of people. Hopefully it helps. Just don't live in fear of that. And if you're in Puerta Vallerta, yeah, try calm down and hunker down and maybe go to the beach, maybe have a margarita, and then repeat. And that's probably the best thing to do.
Yeah. Hal finishes off.
I sure will. And Ken, I want to thank you again for having me on this conversation today. I'd like to say, for my closing statement, is unity is essential. I hear your love, Ken, for the people that are on the other side of the border. When you'd be working in law enforcement and you'd take your armament off and you would cross that border with your brothers to go over there and have a bite to eat and commune with the people that are our neighbors, that we're all connected in those regards. My love for Mexico is just as strong. I feel that unity. Yeah. And you, of course, Pete, and you, Ken, you're so gracious in the way that you approach, the people of that country, and how you have such a compassion and understanding that they have a serious conflict going on. What can we do to marginalize the conflict and come in as a good neighbor? And that's my closing statement on this interview, to be a good neighbor, to do what we can, to do it with obedience, with intelligence, and with the right people in play to make the decisions that need to be made at this time in history. So I love you all. God bless you all. And again, gentlemen, Pete, Ken, nothing but respect to both of you, sirs. And you're my fellow veteran brothers. And I got 27 minutes to get to the VA appointment. So I'm the heck out of here. I love you.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us again. It's been another great episode. I think I should get a special patch for my vest that says Cat Herder. Don't forget to support the show. The PayPal link appearing below as it scrolls, and we will catch all of you next time on the Break It Down show. Thanks.